Hello and welcome to Talking Pharmaceuticals, an interview series brought to you by Making Pharmaceuticals and Distributing Pharmaceuticals. I'm Victoria Emerton, Conference Director for the events which next take place in April 2025. And in the lead up, I'll be joined by experts from UK Pharma to share insights, opinions and practical advice, providing a fresh perspective on key challenges and opportunities in the industry and to look ahead to their involvement in the events. I'm delighted to be joined today by Matt Popkin, Executive Director of CMC Excellence at GSK. Thank you so much for your time today, Matt, and welcome to Talking Pharmaceuticals.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Matt's going to be giving a presentation on the first day of the event, the 29th of April, and the title of that is Application of AI and Machine Learning, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So what does Pharma 4.0 mean to you?
Yeah, so Pharma 4.0 is a term which is referred to quite a lot in the context of the digitization of pharmaceutical development and pharmaceutical manufacturing. So my vision for that, the way I look at it is you can compare what we do with pharmaceuticals to what we do with other industries. And by that, I'm thinking about manufacturing for high-tech industries, or the one I always use as my analogy, which is manufacturing spacecraft. And what we do in the pharmaceutical space is we're developing products and we're manufacturing them. For various reasons, we're quite old-fashioned in how we do that. And I can see a future state, Pharma 4.0, where much more of what we do in terms of how we develop products and processes is done in silico rather than through the more traditional experimentation that we're probably all used to, and that our controls for products and processes are also much more digital, model-based, perhaps AI machine learning based than they are presently.
I think we're on the beginning of a crest of enormous change, aren't we, with the technology that's coming through. So in what ways will digital technologies transform pharma R&D and manufacturing?
So if we look at R&D in the first place, right, I think I've touched on one of these already. The idea that if you're developing a product, that you might find yourself doing it on a computer screen rather than going into the laboratory or the pilot plant, and actually doing experimentation there. Now, to be realistic, right, there's areas where you're always going to need to do experimentation. I mean, places like chemistry, for example, where the science is not as predictable as it is in other areas, such as when you're designing devices or formulations, where actually a lot more can be done in silico. But even in areas like chemistry, once you understand things like reaction rates, an awful lot can be done in terms of process simulations to simulate reactions, impurities, all on the computer, and you can actually massively reduce the work you do experimentally in the lab. And then in the manufacturing environment, I think the applications are endless, right? At the moment, our processes tend to be quite fixed, controlled, because of the highly regulated environment we work in, by parameters in the equipment, by the setup of the equipment. It's very difficult to change things because you might need regulatory approval. I think the future state where the controls of our products are more based on models, which can be simple or very, very complicated with lots of inputs. That future state, I think, is going to be quite transformatory. But I think it's going to be quite a journey to get there, because we as scientists, we as experts in manufacturing and regulatory, aren't used to the models being the basis of the control. We're not used to that in the way that we're used to the traditional controls we have. So that, and the regulations themselves aren't set up around that thinking. So there's a lot of evolution has to occur there. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I think we're going to be looking at something very different in the context of the real control of manufacturing in the future. But as you said in the question, I think we're at the start of that process to an extent, and we've still got a long way to go.
So this all sounds fantastic. Lots of efficiencies, I think, the potential of using new technology. Is there anything stopping us from implementing what you've described?
Well, we work in an industry that is regulated for very good reasons, like no other industry, right? The importance of quality and considering the safety and efficacy of our drugs means that we have an unprecedented regulatory environment which controls those things and which makes changes uniquely complicated, but also uniquely thorough, right? So the regulatory environment has to enable different types of controls, and it has to enable those controls to evolve over time. And I think it's that area where the technology meets the regulations, the regulatory science, which I think is the piece that needs to evolve in order for us to be able to actually deliver this digital future. And you don't see that in other industries, right? There's not regulations stopping you going from version 1 to version 16 of your iPhone, right? But there is exactly that series of barriers for every iteration you have of a manufacturing process for a drug.
And a stepwise process is probably a sensible one, isn't it, to keep things controlled? So you're in CMC Regulatory Affairs. What's your perspective on the regulatory dossiers and how will they change?
Well, dossiers are fixed in terms of their content at the moment, although even that is evolving with changes in things like ICH guidance. But if you look at the pieces that dictate, for example, the control of a manufacturing process, you have your drug substance part, you have your drug product part. And what we're used to seeing there is a description of the process, the facilities, the equipment, and that is in itself something that is subject to approval if you're going to make a change to it. As I've alluded to already, I think what we see in the future is an area where it's the models themselves which are the basis for compliance and batch release, along with the other controls inherent in the process and the GMPs on the plant. And it's those that are actually the basis for our regulatory dossier. But that means that what we're looking at in the dossier itself is a focus on the background understanding that enables those models, on the development of those, and they can be very simple or they can be very complicated with different modeling techniques, and then whatever is appropriate in terms of verification or even validation of models. So I don't think the current format of the regulatory dossier can't be used for this, but I do think that the focus of what we're asking assessors to look at, and frankly what we as regulatory scientists are putting into the dossier, will need to change.
So is everybody working at the same pace, would you say? Is there a global angle? Are all countries the same, or is there anyone leading the field?
Yeah, and it's a really good point. So just to frame that from how I would look at it, we tend to manufacture, at least in multinational companies like my own, effectively a single product for the whole world, which means ideally we're looking at a single regulatory dossier for the whole world. And that means you will need all the regulators who are assessing it to understand what's happening in there and the changes you're having, right? That's maybe going to change a bit, and we could perhaps talk about that. I'll certainly mention that in the meeting. But what you're seeing at the moment is a couple of regulatory agencies who are really at the forefront of trying to enabling this digital future. So the US FDA, obviously, this is a big focus area for them, and you can see various initiatives. And in Europe, there's the European Medicines Agency, and they have a new quality innovation group who are really focused on this digital innovation in manufacturing and are really, I think, setting the global pace here in terms of trying to enable and drive the change.
We might have to get someone from them to come and speak at the event next year. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
I think that's a great idea.
Fantastic. So there's lots to talk about, I think, lots more to come at the event. And Matt's going to be giving his presentation on the 29th of April at Making Pharmaceuticals. And just a reminder that the title is Application of AI and Machine Learning. So you're fine for anyone to come and seek you out and ask you questions, during the event after you've given your presentation, just to pick your brains and to share their thoughts, I guess, as well. It can be a two-way street, can't it?
Yeah, very much so. And in fact, I would really enjoy that. And I think it's important that we have as many people coming together from all sort of different functions involved in this sort of area to try and sort of build the momentum and move us forward in this area. So very much looking forward to discussions with people on the day.
Amazing, and it would be fantastic if making pharmaceuticals is a part of that, change and building that momentum with the industry. So it's been really interesting talking with you today. Thank you so much for your time. Just to remind everybody that attending the exhibition and the conference is entirely free. Registration is open at www.makingpharma.com. So we look forward to seeing you, Matt, and your colleagues from the Academy of Pharmaceutical Sciences. You're coming with a group, which is great to be working with them again. We look forward to seeing you and everybody watching this recording at the Coventry Building Society Arena on the 29th and 30th of April. Thank you very much for your time today.
Fantastic. Thank you.